not know where they had laid him. And when she had said this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, and did not know that it was Jesus. And Jesus said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping? Whom are you seeking?" She, supposing him to be the gardener, said to him, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have laid him, and I will take him away." And Jesus said to her, "Mary." And she turned and said to him, "Rabboni," which is to say, "Teacher." Jesus said to her, "Do not cling to me, for I have not yet ascended to my Father. But go to my brethren and say to them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, and to my God and your God." Mary Magdalene came and told the disciples that she had seen the Lord, and that he had spoken these things to her. This is the word of God for us, the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
Yesterday, as I frequently do on either on Good Friday or on Holy Saturday, I decided I'd take some time and I sat down and I watched The Passion. Again, that movie, Mel Gibson, as they call it, a masterpiece. To me, it kind of rips my heart out every time I see it. Because every time I know what's coming. I've known what was coming since I was a little child and could first understand about Holy Week, and Good Friday, and Easter Sunday. Not the Easter Bunny stories, but the story of Jesus. But I never really internalized until years later the pain that he took, and it brings it out to me what Jesus did for me, what the result of my sins. You know, it doesn't matter. Sin is sin. You know, God is holy and we are not holy. And that puts that gap between us that we never could close no matter how hard we tried. Because as we look at things, you know, have you ever told a lie? Yeah, I've told a lie before. I don't know how, I think I probably told my first one just after I learned how to talk. Did you take that cookie? No, ma'am, I didn't do that. There went my opportunity to go to heaven, right there. But it's not just that, it's everything else. I've been a liar, I took Jimmy's candy cane when I was a little boy at a Christmas party. So I'm a thief. Yeah, and I dare say I've taken a lot worse things than that. But I've done all those things, you know, and you know, I've looked at people lustfully. I'll admit to that. Yeah. And there was a time when I was in the Navy that my language was awful. And have I ever taken the Lord's name in vain? Yeah, I have. I mean, I'm just marking them off one after another. I think I've committed every one of the 10 Commandments, except I don't think I've ever intentionally murdered anybody. But even that wasn't of my own doing. It was by the grace of God, because I've done things that could have gotten other people killed. And so when I see that, when I saw that movie, that thing with Christ taking those sins on and willfully doing so. You know, as he said, no one takes my life from me. I lay it down of my own free will. And he did that for me. He did that for you. And all the pain, and I cannot watch that movie without tears. There's no way. The pain and suffering that he went through, and the suffering that his mother, Mary, went through, and the fear that the disciples had. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And God spares us from all of that. You know? So here we are, and we've been grumbling for the past few weeks about being sequestered and having to stay in and so on, and yet as soon as all that took place, after that Thursday night in the Garden of Gethsemane, when those soldiers came and took him away, the disciples had been hiding in fear. And even after, that Sunday morning, we see the empty tomb and we know that Jesus has risen, but they didn't know. Mary Magdalene was the first to find out. But Peter and John, who is the other disciple that Jesus loved, Peter and John, they didn't know, and neither did any of the other disciples. At that point in time, they were hiding. They were hunkered down. They were fearful. I don't know if at that time they hadn't heard about Paul or Saul, who would be fearsome as hunting down Christians and either killing them or imprisoning them or having them beaten, but ruining them. He wasn't, by his own admission, he wasn't there in Jerusalem. He never saw Jesus. But shortly thereafter he was. And so, I just think about, why were we grumbling about being sequestered for a few days or a few weeks or something, where we still have some freedom and we're not worried that if we show our face we might be arrested? When those poor folks were hunkered down like they were and afraid, every knock at the door would brought shivers of fear to them. And it wasn't until later that Sunday night, later that first Easter day, that Jesus showed himself. And that was to the two disciples that were going down the road to Emmaus. And they were talking about all the terrible things that had happened. And they were getting out of town. They were discouraged. They put all their hopes and dreams into this Jesus as a Messiah. And he had been taken and beaten and crucified and dead and put into a tomb. And then he was gone. And the Sanhedrin and the Pharisees were telling all the people that the disciples had stolen their body so they could say that he rose from the dead, that he came back. And they knew they hadn't done that, but they didn't know if somebody else might have done that. They were lost, and they were talking about all this stuff, and then all of a sudden, a stranger appears with them, comes upon them, and he shares the story with them. He asks them what they're talking about, and he begins to interpret all the prophecies from the Old Testament, from the Scriptures, into what they had just experienced, and kind of put all the pieces together for them. And they were fascinated by it. When they got to Emmaus and they asked him that he said was going to go on his way, and they said, well, won't you stay and have dinner with us? So he did, and at the dinner he took the bread and he broke it, and they realized then that it was the risen Christ. And they got up from that table, and it was 7 miles between Jerusalem and Emmaus, and they ran back to where the disciples were. That whole 7 miles. I don't know, maybe to some people that doesn't seem like a long distance,